Hello, my name is Mark Taylor. Welcome to the Education on Fire podcast network. This show is sponsored by the National Association for Primary Education. Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 6, Episode 96. Hello, welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast and our English and Literacy season. Today I'm joined by Danica Chapman, and she's from 2Simple, and you all have heard about Purple Mash. I'm sure there are many of you in schools that use Purple Mash in many different ways, and she's going to come on and give us a little bit of internal background about the organisation and also exactly where her job fits into those things. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, you're more than welcome. This is exciting.
So you said before that just before we came on there that you've been a teacher and obviously you're still very much involved in school. So give us a little bit of that professional background so we get an idea of where you started your career and how you've sort of been now involved in 2Simple.
So I started teaching in 1992, way back in the dim, dark past. I'm actually Australian, and I trained in Australia and taught for 7 years in Australia out there. And then I came to the UK in 99. And I initially, as many teachers do when they first come over from the Antipodes, we do supply for a few months, and then I was doing. I worked for the Westminster Inclusive Education Service, so I was learning support teacher for statemented pupils across Westminster. That service has since closed down, but I was asked by one of the schools I was working with to apply for their Senko position, which I did and got the job, and I loved working there. That was a little school in Westminster in Marylebone. And I then, after working there for about 5 years, I think it was 7 years, I actually went to Africa for a few weeks and volunteered in an AIDS orphanage that were building a school in Uganda. And I fell in love with the idea of going to volunteer in Africa. So I came back to the UK and decided to hand in my notice, and I was going to go back to Australia via Africa for a year or so. And at the pretty much the same time, I then met my now husband and realized that this relationship was perhaps quite a crucial one. And that even though I'd already handed in my notice, so I'd sort of got to that point where I thought, the role has developed to a point where I feel someone needs to take it on. So I then thought, do you know what, I'm going to do a second degree. So I did a music degree, and in order to do a music degree, I needed to be able to provide for myself as a mature age student. And I started working freelance initially for Espresso. And then after working for them for a few years, I was headhunted, if you'd like to, that sounds very exciting,
It does, doesn't it?
I got a phone call from Andrew Wilkinson, who heads our Purple Mash or 2Simple CPD department, and he rang me and said, look, Danica, how would you feel about coming to manage the CPD department in the Southeast, based in London? And I was very excited about that. So yes, I interviewed for that job, and now that's me. That's what I do. I manage a large team of trainers who go out into schools and provide professional development training teachers on how to use the tools and resources in Purple Mash.
Sounds fantastic. Just take us a little bit into your music side, because as a professional musician myself, I'm always interested in see how people normally it goes music into something else, but you've sort of did something else into music and then back around again. So it's a great little story.
Well, my parents are both musicians, so I grew up traveling around Australia. Random story, in a double-decker bus, a 1933, one of the London buses that made its way on a boat somehow to Australia, and I lived in that with my parents for 7 years, traveling around playing music, and music bit me. I love music. I still sing. I'm still out gigging on weekends when I'm not working with Purple Mash. So I just decided that I'd never really studied music. I'd loved it. I'd been singing in bands for years, and I play a number of instruments relatively badly, but I've had the opportunity to tour with some really fantastic musicians. So that's the other side of what I do. But yeah, and I'm still out there gigging as much as I can.
Fantastic! What a great thing, especially when it's something you love and you get the chance to do that. It's like I say, especially on a regular basis. I think it's such a great gift.
Well, I had the thought that perhaps I would go into music teaching, and I did actually teach music for a year and a half, and I just really didn't enjoy it. I not so much because the music side of it was fabulous. It was more the fact that I'd gone from senior leadership team, Senko, but teaching all different subjects, working with special needs children. But then I also worked with the very able children, focusing on the level 6, as it was back then, maths pupils, because maths was my major in my teaching degree. And I love teaching maths. I love teaching English. I love all the subjects. So teaching one subject day in, day out was just a bit monotonous. So yeah, I didn't really dig that so much.
Yeah, and it's interesting how sometimes it's only by trying that isn't it? Like you say, you can never quite tell until you're in the thick of it. So it's a good thing in the end.
Yeah.
So for those people, and we just said before, there can't be that many people, especially in the UK, that haven't heard of Purple Mash. But give us a little bit of an idea of exactly what it does in schools, how it's supporting schools, and the sorts of things that teachers could use it for.
So, Purple Mash. Now, so I used it in my own teaching practice, which is why I love it so much now. And back when I was using it with a year 6 class in Hackney, it's just evolved so much. And for those of you who use Purple Mash, there's there's so much in there. It's a suite of tools and resources, games, pre-made topic resources, cross-curricular ideas, data dashboard. The data dashboard arrived this last week. It's brand new. So there's so much in there that teachers can use to support every area of the curriculum. From early years, we have Mini Mash, which is specifically designed for nursery and reception pupils, which is just a fabulous resource. Teachers can access all sorts of amazing things, and it's all cloud-based, so that everything children do and save, they save in their own little private space. Teachers can assess the work, they can look at progression, they can. It's fantastic. So yeah, it's huge, and my job is to go into schools and basically teach teachers how to navigate their way around the resources, how to use them from a pedagogical point of view, how it's going to support them in their teaching and learning of the whole curriculum, not just the computing curriculum. I think there is a bit of a there's sometimes is a bit of a misnomer that Purple Mash is for the computing curriculum. It's not, although we do have a very well thought out computing scheme of work that schools are jumping on with. They're really loving it, with some lots of pre-made resources and step-by-step lesson plans for non-expert computing teachers, which is pretty much 90% of us out there.
Yeah.
So it's all things to all men, if I could say that.
Yeah, and I guess, like I say, as it's expanded so much and it grows so much, the CPD element is a really important one to make sure people are really getting the most out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was had a session on Tuesday with some teachers supporting developing computing leadership. So they're all computing leads, and they came in to do a full day's training with me in our Angel offices. And if I had £1 for every time I had a computing lead say to me, "Oh, I feel we've got Purple Mash, we've had it for some time, but I just don't think we're getting the best out of it." And I think, well, that's where my job is. My job is to go in there and inspire people and show them some of the things that they may not necessarily have seen before or used before. I think because Purple Mash and 2Simple as a company, and the resources that 2Simple has made over the years, the sort of CD-ROM resources are so loved and have a great reputation, teachers immediately take to it when they then subscribe to Purple Mash. And it is so easy to learn to manage and master the tools and then teach with them. But sometimes it just takes a bit of guidance from someone like myself to say, well, these are resources that you can use for this particular area, or have you looked at this, or have you seen this? Let's have a play. Let's explore.
And I mean, I know my children have used Purple Mash as they've gone through the education system as well, and like I say, it's one of those things which is sort of embedded in our psyche, even as parents and adults as well. And I know my kids were always kind of, oh yeah, I'm just going to log on and do X, and I'm going to do Y. And even back then, it was kind of, oh okay, that sounds great, and that was sort of, from my experience, sort of one of the first times I sort of had that sense of the kids had their own platform, as it were, like I said, their own personal space where they could actually be using it in a way that was supporting in school, but also went from home as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love my favorite thing actually is doing sessions with parents. So where parents come in and we play around with mini mash, particularly for the early years, parents of early years children, and we explore the tools in Purple Mash. And I love seeing the light bulbs go on. And as a parent myself, with a 7-year-old who's in year 3, and she just loves going on it. I can set we have a feature, the to-dos feature, where you can set specific tasks for the children to complete. They literally click the tick, press start, and voila, they're in. So I set my daughter Daisy loves it, but I set her spelling tests for her every week in Purple Mash, and I set some games. She's currently practicing her 3s, 8s, and 4s times tables, and we've actually got a brand new tool that arrived a couple of weeks ago, which is already incredibly popular. It's called the multiplication tables check, which basically replicates as closely as we can establish so far what next year's year 4 multiplication tables test is going to look like. So year 4 teachers, year 2, 3, 4 teachers are loving it because they're basically getting the children prepared for next year's test. Whatever we think about tests, I'm not a great fan of them, but it is there. We have to do them. So, it's there to support the children. And it's great. Daisy, my daughter, is just loving it.
Yeah, brilliant. And so let's focus now a little bit on the English and literacy side of things. So obviously that's the season that we're in at the moment. Take us through some of the tools, some of the ways that schools are using it. And I guess it could also be, like I said, we're talking English and literacy, but of course writing and that whole area is very cross-curricular as well. So can you give us some examples of the tools that are there, but also how it's being used from your experience as well?
Okay, so the tools that we have for English, teachers will recognize a lot of these. So there's 2Creative Story, which is one of my absolutely favorite tools. It's an animation ebook making program where children can sort of combine pictures and sounds and animate their stories, and you can have backgrounds in there. There's a new version of it, actually. There's now 3 levels of it. There's the adventure story section of it, which is where you can add in different sprites, and the different characters can do different things. And it doesn't have to be a linear story. It can sort of go wherever you want it to. So that is a really popular and well-used tool within Purple Mash. But there's also other things. The other things that are really popular are within the topics areas. You have pre-made writing templates across several. There's over 100 topics tools here, and they're really easy to set as to-dos. You can differentiate them. You can add in your own little sentence starters, your own images. You can Google search images and add them in. And you can also use 2Publish, 2Publish Plus, which are pre-made, blank writing templates that are really popular. Teachers can use those to add their own bespoke writing templates. There's so much. You've got you've got a handwriting tool, you've got a typing tool, you've got 2Write, which is a really powerful collaborative word processing tool. So essentially, all the children can log into one document and you can type in real time and see each other's work coming up. And it's brilliant for planning stories, or I used to use it for spag stuff. So here is the cat sat on the mat. Go in and add an adverbial phrase or improve that sentence in some way. And then you've got 2Connect, which again is a collaborative mind mapping tool. So you can plan stories, you can write about a trip you've been on, but it's collaborative as well, so that all the children can log in at the same time and add their own information to it. So it builds up collaboratively. And Mashcams. Children love Mashcams as well, which is a list of, there's about 140 or more different characters that you can become. You literally put your face inside the Mashcam in front of the camera, and you could be, I'm just looking at them now, you could be a Viking, you could be King Henry VIII, you could be a fairy tale princess, whoever you like. And this is used obviously to explore character, but it's also, I've used it with my old year 6 class. We used it to look at sort of aspiration. So who is it that you want to be when you grow up, and what's your kind of educational trajectory to get to that? I mean, as you can imagine, for year 6 children, particularly the boys, the footballer was very popular. not sure that they'd really thought through the
No, but it's the first thing that comes to mind, isn't it?
yeah,
Especially after the last couple of days in terms of the Champions League and all that kind of thing.
I
It's like,
know. Do you know what? I'm Australian, so you have to forgive my complete ignorance when it comes to football. I still call it soccer. The footballs we have in Australia are squashed. They're a completely different shape.
yeah,
There's a lot more contact.
yes, indeed. The one thing that really struck me when you were talking there was on a couple of the podcasts on this season, we've talked about the collaborative writing idea,
Yes.
but we were talking more about the long piece of paper in the middle of the room, get rid of the tables, big long paper on the floor, and everyone just writing their own thoughts or having their own section to do a poem or something like that. And
Yeah.
and what I loved about what you were saying, this is very much a 21st century version of the same thing. You're all logging into one place, you're all doing it collectively, but just in that digital format.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. And I've used it on Tuesday actually as a feedback at the end of this training day that I was delivering. And it's fantastic. And when teachers use it, in fact, a colleague of mine who is out in the west of the country, she used this with us in a staff session, and one of the teachers used it to announce that she was pregnant. So it's it's a collaborative tool, and you can see everybody's writing coming up with different colors, so everybody's allocated a different color, and you can see that on the screen. So in real time you are adding your own information, and yes, it was a bit of a laugh. But yeah, it is collaborative. There are other ways of collaborating as well in Purple Mash, which can be used in a cross-curricular way, but in English. So blogging, we have a blogging tool called 2Blog, where children can either create their own blog or teachers can create a class blog that you can add, you can tag resources to, or tools, files that you've made, you can put those inside the blog. So a year 6 teacher I was working with last week was creating a blog about the Holocaust, and he'd taken an image from the boy in striped pajamas, and he basically posed a rhetorical question to the children, or not so rhetorical, because they actually had to then comment on it. The question was, what does the wall represent? With the blog, children can comment on the blog posts of other children or of the teacher's blog post. And it's really popular in Key Stage 2. It's a way to share resources, to share ideas. It's brilliant. And it's teachers obviously have control over any of the tools that are go live for other children to see. Teachers have to enable and approve comments and posts, etc. But so teachers are still omnipotent, if you like to say, in the classroom. They still have the control over who can see what, which is great. So there's lots of e-safety stuff in there.
And does it go beyond that? You sort of, a blog essentially people often think is online for anyone to see. And like I said, you've got those safety features in there, but if they want to, can they make it live to the public, or do you have to be within Purple Mash, or how does that work?
So when you create a blog, by default it's only available within your Purple Mash school portal. So only children and staff that have a login to your school portal have access and can see that blog. But when you create a blog, I enable it so that only my class can see it, or the whole school can see it. But you can, if you want to, there is a button here where it says visible to public, and you can if you want to make it visible to public, you can get the QR code or the URL or the embed code. And a lot of schools are doing this actually across the UK, where they embed the blog. And there's another display, what we call display boards, which is another way of sharing resources. They're embedding these within their school website, and it's a live link. So essentially, when children send something new to a blog or a display board and it's approved by a teacher, that then is made live on the website. So it's a great way for parents to see without having to log in. Here is what we've been doing in Purple Mash. Here's a blog about the Holocaust, or anything, whatever your blog is about, and parents can see it live via the website without having to log in. But you have to enable that checkbox when you create the blog. It's not there by default. You have to make that decision as a school.
Yeah, I mean that sounds perfect. In as much as, like I say, you have the safety and you have all the control and all the safeguarding that you need to begin with, and then you can actively, like I say, because that interaction with parents, the fact the in and out of school communication is really important these days, isn't it? And to be able to share that and in whichever way you can is a really important one. And because it's all embedded within Purple Mash, I guess the more children use it, especially if they start in the early years, going all the way through, it's essentially like second nature. Is not so much technology as these days. It's just what they know, and they just want to share and use it to its full.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a daunting thing for a lot of teachers that you've got 8, 9, 10-year-olds in your room who are more au fait with technology. You give them an iPad and they know their way around it, whereas staff, sometimes that's not the case. And so it has to be that we are facilitating the usage of technology in education, but embedding that in the pedagogy. So we're still the basis of why we do what we do is about good teaching and learning. It's not about just using technology for the sake of it. It's about using the resources and the tools to really enhance the learning in the school, and that's the point of it.
Are you a teacher looking for support to create and develop music in your school? We have created Primary Music on Fire, taking the fear out of teaching by giving you the step-by-step skills and ongoing support you need. If you're a homeschooling parent and would like the opportunity to learn an instrument with your child on our 5-day challenges, all of this is available through Primary Music on Fire. Go to educationonfire.com/primary-music and sign up to the newsletter. That's educationonfire.com/primary-music. And I can see that kind of, like you said about the characters and that kind of thing, once you've captured the imagination, then anything is possible. I mean, actually being a character that you're writing about and actually seeing it on the computer and actually making all of that, that's a very different starting point than sitting down with a book and a pen or a pencil and actually writing, now where am I going to start? Because you're actually already engaged and involved in what you're doing before you've even written a word.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love as well, one thing I haven't mentioned is 2Email. So you, as a teacher, you can email your children as a character from the book that you're reading. So for all intents and purposes, the children receive an email from, the Gruffalo, if you want it to be, or there's some pre-made ones as well. So, you can go back in history and receive an email from Guy Fawkes or Nelson Mandela. Whomever. There's lots of pre-made ones, but teachers themselves can just email. And I was actually doing a unit with a year 4 class. Remember when Tim Peake was up in space?
Yeah.
So we were working with a year 4 class, and they watched the live launch, and they were so excited. They were really engaged. And then they received, lo and behold, an email from Tim Peake from space, as far as they were aware. Asking them questions like, this is what I had for lunch. What did you have for lunch today? So the children can respond to that person that they've received an email from. So it's great where, you could get an email from Henry VIII. I'm just about to, make a decision to divorce my wife. What do you think about that decision? All these sorts of things. Or from Dumbledore. Get an email from Dumbledore, just have a conversation with Dumbledore, see what's going on in Hogwarts.
It's just so immersive, isn't it? It's fantastic.
It is. It's great. Yeah.
And you mentioned the technology side of it before, which is a really key point, I think. And for those people that don't use it on a regular basis, is it you need a set of laptops, you need an iPad, you need how does it work from that sort of technical point of view? Is it sort of multi-platform and multi-device use?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much sort of anywhere, anytime, any device really. So it works on laptops, iPads, tablets, Macs, whatever, wherever you are. You just need your single login and you're in, really. That's it. There are a couple of the resources that are, for example, some of the premium resources, the couple of the phonics things that are still flash based, so they will only work on laptops or PCs. But 95% of it is accessible on tablets and iPads, etc. So,
and just give us we talked about how it's progressed over the years. Give us some idea of the sheer size of the organisation now and the sorts of people that are involved in the numbers.
So do you know what? I wouldn't hazard a guess as to how many people are in the company. So we have a new office in Angel, where the staff, all the in-house staff work out of there. And I would say, I'm just trying to sort of guesstimate how many there are. There's about 25 members of staff in there now. So you've got the development team, which is sort of the programmers, and they are the ones that sort of put it together in terms of the programming. And when I go into the office, I see them there with their sort of 3 screens in front of them, looking at. I'm assuming it's HTML5, but I don't JavaScript or something. I don't know. It's a language that only they understand. They are the ones that basically take suggestions from teachers around the UK and turn it into a program that you can click on and do stuff with. And they have greater minds than mine, I have to tell you. But yeah, so the teachers around the UK say, oh, it would be great if it could, and we go, oh, that's a great idea. And we have a sort of long list of suggestions from people, and obviously the development team themselves a lot of them are teachers or ex-teachers. So they're very keen to provide the kinds of tools that teachers want, really, and to make it do what teachers need it to do. So that's the development team. You've also got, we've got the office team that sort of deal with the finance side of things. And then you have the support team. And our support team, I have to say, they are really fabulous. They're there to support you. We have the ability for people to sort of chat online if you need to. There's a chat, what do you call that? I guess it's an online chat feature within the website. So if there's something they need instantaneously, there's someone there to field those, to provide the answers. But the support team, I'm often sending them, questions about things. How does this work? Could you help a school out with this? And they just are fabulous. So they're the support team. And who else we've got in there? You've got the team that do a lot of the logos and the look of Purple Mash. It's very the icons and the imagery is very well known. And we have Brett who heads up that team, and it's a large. And then you've got the field sales that go out into schools, and then you've got myself and my 4 colleagues who run the CPD department across the UK and Northern Ireland. So it's lots of fun.
Yeah, and you really get a sense of all the support and all the dialogues that are going on. I love the fact that it's you're doing it for teachers and it's by teachers doing it for teachers, and I think that really comes across, which is why it's such a huge success. And just finish off a little bit about the CPD. You were saying that some people come to your offices, but I'm assuming you also go into schools and various things. How does that work?
Yeah, that's true. So we have a number of different sort of CPD options for schools, many of which are included free in a school subscription. So we run things that we call mash meets. So schools will volunteer to host a mash meet, which is essentially a Purple Mash teach meet, and they're run as twilight sessions in schools. The staff at the school themselves can come along, obviously, but we also invite local schools, and we advertise it on our website, and schools come along, and it's generally sort of a taster of what's available in Purple Mash, or a refresher for those who are fairly up to date. But it's a great opportunity for teachers who are, for example, I had one last week where I had 9 teachers from 7 schools, and the 2 Year 2 teachers just sat next to each other and went, oh, I use this. How do you, oh, that's interesting. Show me that. So it's a nice way for teachers to get together and be shown some things by people like myself, but also to chat about it, how it works on site. And then we have what we call MASH chats, which computing leads, for example, might book a phone call with us or an online meeting with us in their PPA time, just to go through anything specific that they want a bit of extra support on. We also have webinars that we run that that are live, so teachers can log in, and we generally have them during lunch break at sort of 20-minute short webinars on very specific things. But we also record those, and we have them up on our YouTube channel. So there's lots of pre-recorded webinars on just little snippet things that people can watch in the privacy of their own room. But then we also have the on-site CPD that schools book us to come out and do. Generally, it can be a half day or a full day inset day, or most of the work, most of the on-site CPD we provide is twilight sessions, staff meeting sessions. And we go out and we, based on what the school want to see in the CPD, really, there's a number of different CPD options, but we make it very bespoke, depending on what the school themselves how they want to use Purple Mash and where they're at in terms of how long they've been using it, how au fait they are with the tools, etc. So, and that's a lot of what I do, is going out to schools 3 or 4 times a week and delivering on-site CPD, and I love it. I love working with teachers, and I love then seeing afterwards how their usage has improved. And I just know, although there is something about when you're not in your own classroom, you don't sort of have that same rapport with the children. And I do miss that about teaching. But when I go into schools, I know I'm having an impact on. So there might be, 20 teachers in the school. That's 20 lots of 30 children. That's 600 children I've had an impact on. In a twilight session. So I have to think about it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's 2Simple and sort of Purple Mash. It's always felt like one big family in terms of understanding it, like I said, as a parent through my kids, and also when I did an interview back for the National Association for Primary Education, they had a conference 2 or 3 years ago, and we had a conversation about it there. And then it's always just felt incredibly friendly and very supportive, and just very inclusive, and that's come across today, which is lovely. It's all, as the organisation's growing, it's growing in that same kind of feel, and I really appreciate you spending the time today and taking us through exactly what it is that you offer and how you do it, and giving people a bit of an insider to something they're so familiar with in many cases. And just let us know exactly where we can find out more in terms of website and that kind of thing.
Okay, so I love that you said the family thing, and I think that, as the company does grow and as we move forward, that's very much in the forefront of people's minds, that we want to keep that family feeling of the fact that everybody is there with one single purpose, and that is great learning. That it's about the pupils and the teachers in the long run. So we keep that very much in the forefront of our mind. But if people wanted to know more, there's 2simple.com. Where we have lots of, you can go in and see what the support options are, what your professional development options are. There's a lot on there. So yeah, it's www.2simple, as in the digit 2simple.com. But you can also, if you're interested in CPD particularly, you could email me. I'm Danica at 2simple.com. That's DANICA at 2simple.com, and we can provide whatever it is you need on site at your school.
Oh, that's fantastic. Danica, thanks so much for chatting to us. It's been really interesting, and I always love these conversations where it sort of get even more inside something that I know. And whenever I've been to the Bet Fair and go, the 2Simple and Purple Mash store it's just basically where everyone gravitates to, and it sort of takes up more and more area each year. so it's such a fabulous thing.
Well, I think our bet parties are rather well known. I've only been in with the company for 3.5 years, so I've been to 4 bets. And yes, there's been a couple of humdinger 2Simple bet parties. So look out for one next year. It's lots of fun, and we have the bet conferences, and whenever we do conferences, the children are the ones that drag the teachers along. If they're there as digital leaders with the teacher, the children are the ones that come along and say, "Oh, Purple Mash, we've got this," and it's great. It's excellent. So
yeah, fantastic.
As long as that continues, it's brilliant.
Yeah, if I'm there next year, I'll come and say hi if I don't see you before. And I
do.
really appreciate you chatting today.
Painting the world purple.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. In fact, the offices should become a whole purple world, and you can see it from the skyline as well, round Angel.
Well, that's actually our purpose in life, is just to paint the world purple. Yes, it's a world takeover.
Yes,
that's what.
Be a very happy place.
It would be. It would be.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and best of luck with it all. And as you said, I love that sentiment as you finished off before about the fact that it's all those people you're impacting, both in terms of the teachers, but also the students and all the pupils, and that goes on from generation to generation. So congratulations, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today, Mark. It was lots of fun.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I just wanted to remind you that we have some free downloadable English and literacy resources that have been given to us very kindly by teachingpacks.co.uk. If you go to our website, educationonfire.com, and in the top menu click on blog, you will see each week I've been putting a free resource for you to download and explore to help you in your classroom. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to chatting to you soon. Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.